Okay, we're back. We're back for part 2 of our expectation and intentions podcast. And for anyone who didn't catch the first one, it's really worth tuning into that. We basically have a big discussion around what we mean by expectations, and we give some real examples of that. And we talk about how many of them are invisible, and it's a really great way to cue this one up. So I definitely recommend going back and giving that a listen. But where we left it effectively was we had spoken about expectations. We'd had a little bit of a chat about intentions, but we were going to have a deeper dive into what we mean by an intention here now together, and then talk about some more practical ways of inviting some of them into our lives. Yeah, and I mean, like, I think it's worth mentioning, Ellie, that this isn't about making expectations the enemy or anything. It's not like trying to be on some kind of crusade. It's just being about aware of where they are in our lives, and sort of noticing the power of an intention and where expectations can help, can make our world smaller and can lead us to more conflict in our lives. I think is both conflict with reality, like being in resistance to reality because we think we're expecting something to happen, but also innocently ending up in conflict with our relationships and with the people, our loved ones and people around us too.
We can clear so much up. Like, you think about the time that we spend on this earth and how much of it is in some level of conflict, and it doesn't have to be major conflict, but irritation or some level of discontent, and we can eradicate a lot of that just by understanding how our experience is created, how other people create their own experience, why there's a difference, why we want to control other people's behaviors, why we have these things, like I referred to the manual, as Brooke Castillo calls it, why we feel the need to have these things. And the thing I really dearly want everyone to go back and listen to part 1, because it's going to be more impactful listening to that episode before this episode. But we really talked about, like, the difference in the level of like energy required to live if we are wrapped up in expectations versus intention. How being intention led is so much lighter and opens us up to our full potential, as opposed to something that and you can test this out for yourself as you move through these 2 episodes. Test this out for yourself. How does it feel when I sit in expectation versus how does it feel in my body when I lead from intention? And so try it out for yourself and play with it.
Yeah, that's so true. You can literally do that, because this is like a how thing, not a what thing. So you may have your idea of where you want to go or what you want to bring into your life, but the fuel of the how you get there, of expectation versus intention, is huge. And you can literally just try it on. You can be like, I'm going to intend to da 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 da, or my intention is da 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 da, versus I expect X, Y, or Z to happen, and you can see how it feels in the body. So, also, before we perhaps talk about some of the more practical aspects of this, then, mate, why don't we? So, with an intention, what does making an intention mean to you? Like, what is it? How does it make sense to you? Or setting an intention.
Setting an intention. What comes to mind for me is being led by the heart. So there's a requirement to have a level of connection with that inner knowing, the wisdom that we talked about on the last podcast episode about this. Because I believe we can only set a meaningful intention if we have that contact first. So it's like the contact comes first, and then the intention allows us to become aligned to it. So I know you can tell us about your anchor in a minute, but to me, it's like a compass. So as we move around a particular practice or a particular day or our life as a whole, we have something that is guiding us and allowing us to recalibrate along the way.
Yeah, I love that. For some reason, I was taken to like intentions are very they're flowing from the now, they're flowing from the heart. They're like authentic, they're coming from us, like the real us, consciousness. And I don't know why I was brought to the idea of authentic desire versus craving as well. And I can't remember who I was talking to the other day. It may have been Michael Neal. He's come up a lot in the last couple of episodes, but he was talking about how, was it him? I can't remember. Someone was talking about the difference between desire and craving. And often the Buddha is quoted as saying that, you know, desire is the root of all suffering. Well, if you talk to many Buddhists now, they'll actually say, well, no, it's craving. And and there's a difference. Desire is just like wanting something to happen because you're like, I just want that. Craving is, I want that to happen and I won't be happy until.
Exactly.
And so there seems like a similar distinction here for me, in that when you're being led from intention, it's like, I would dearly love this for this to happen. I want this to happen because, but then that's like, and then it's like full stop. And it's, you don't add the expectation, which is, and if it doesn't happen, I'm going to be pissed off or whatever. It's kind of like the kind of difference between these things. And yeah, I love what you said about the compass. Intention is like a really wonderful thing that's guiding us along the way, but it just doesn't have the same repercussions or impact in our life if for some reason we realize along the way that it's not where we want to go. And it also allows us to already have what we're looking for. So Sid Banks always used to say, he's saying hello. Hey, buddy.
It's Chester. Can you
is
hear
it Chester? Yeah, I can't see him because it's too light. Hey, bud.
Sam says hello. Bye.
Bless him. So Sid Banks used to say, you know, you can have everything that you've ever wanted once you realize you've already got it. You know, so these good feelings pour from inside of us, you know, so living from love, we're made of love, you know, living from joy, all these things flood from who we are inside of us. And so the intention can be to live from love or to live from who we really are. It's not a future-based thing. It's a now thing. So you can you can have the intention of having a fucking mansion, right? But there's no circumstance that can guarantee that you're going to get the feelings that you think it's going to give you. But you can have those things now. You can have the feelings of love and security and peace and fulfillment now, and then you can go and have a mansion, and you can desire that mansion, or you can have the intention of having it, but you don't have to crave it, and it's not going to fuck you up if you don't get it, which is a really different way of approaching life. So this is no small distinction as I see it. An intention is about it allows us to be in the Tao, allows us to be in the flow of life. And I think innocently expectations can often be synonymous with resistance, you know, because it maybe not immediately, but at that point when that brewing discontentment shows its face, because you know we've got a plan and the universe might have something different for us planned, you know, we're going to suffer.
I'm so glad that you said about it being rooted in the present, because I want to underline that a few times, because whatever our intention, it is so important to be living as if that's already so now.
Yeah.
So important. And this is linked to, you know, the whole thing where, hang on, I'm going to say it wrong, and I'm going to say it the wrong way around. Where focus goes, energy flows? Hang on a minute.
You got it, yeah. I heard that so many times.
It doesn't sound right, though. It doesn't sound right. Where attention goes,
energy flows where attention goes, or whatever. Yeah,
where it's focus. Yeah, attention. Where attention goes, energy flows. Like this is the whole thing. Like you are going to create more in your life of what you focus on. So if you set your intention and then practice that intention as if it is already so, then you know this is like the roots of manifestation.
Yeah, and like I mean, there's nowhere in my life in particular, perhaps we can talk about intention setting around certain practices and things that we've spoken about. And we talk about it's very often that you may set an intention at the beginning of a yoga practice or something like that. But in the world, so in something that's been really powerful and beautifully helpful for me, and something I'm going to talk about a lot more going forwards in terms of my experience and healing from plant medicines without an intention. If you're going to go into some very powerful healing ceremonies and shamanic settings without intention, you're like a ship without an anchor. And what I found really interesting in my journey is that back when I did things irresponsibly when I was much younger and I didn't have an anchor, I would be much more likely to get lost at sea. But in ceremonial settings with healers, with people that are trained, where to unlock the subconscious with an intention, like you said about, you know, where your attention is, reliably, I get answers, and reliably I get a deepening of truth and understanding, and it's been some of the most beautiful healing of my life. And I'm going to talk more about this, and we've got some cool podcasts planned for the future. But to me, it's a very, very, very clear example, and this is true of any shamanic or any ceremonial or any healing tradition, that an intention set at the beginning is key. It is key. It is the guiding light. It is literally an invitation for the guidance to show you and to turn up and show you. And you know, I talk about that because I, you know, recently, so I was in a sweat lodge recently, and it's freaking intense. You're in a 50 degree C, so it's 120 Fahrenheit hut for, well, like mud hut for effectively an hour and a half with a bunch of other people, and shit comes up. And if you haven't set the intention of what you're doing it for when you go in there, like, you're gonna freak out. I mean, it's tough anyway. And the same is true with ice baths for you. Perhaps you can talk a little bit about that. Like, I think it's probably very true that knowing why you're doing that, knowing that you're strengthening yourself and working with the stress response, and looking for clarity and awakening the inner strength that you have, like those things, it's literally the difference between getting out of an ice bath or staying in it, right?
Oh, 100%, 100%. The first time that I did an ice bath, there was a real distinction. It was almost perceptible. Like you could, if you did, everyone's kind of like stood out in a queue to go in, and you could almost pick the people that were going to have a hard time versus the people that were not going to have a hard time. But I hadn't thought about it as explicitly as a level of intention, but that seems to me to be absolutely what's at play. And interestingly enough, some expectation as well, because you've got a bunch of people there going, this is going to be cold. Yeah, it is because it's ice. But the expectation of this is going to be really horrible, this is going to be really painful, and then guess what you get? That if that's what you focus on, that's what you're going to get.
Yeah, that's so true. The alcohol journey as well, right? Like we talk about, I often say about the chap who sent me the email and said, I know that the first 2 weeks are going to be a living hell. I was like, how do you know that? And he was like, oh, because I've been reading this and that. And then he messaged me, you know, a week later. It was like, it really wasn't what I expected it to be. Thank you so much for coaching me and just throwing a grenade into the ideas that I had about that and opening some other opportunities. Because I mean, this is one of the things, if you go into a sweat lodge or if you go into an ice bath expecting it to be either easy or hard, if you just, you know, you're setting yourself up for something. But if you go in with the intention of discovering something about yourself or learning to let go, whatever it might be, like it's a different calibration again.
It is. It's one of, when you were talking about that chap, you just reminded me of this recently that there's a client one-to-one that came to me for coaching, and it was just wonderful. I'd said like so this is like really early days of being alcohol free, like the first week of being alcohol free, and I said, how are you feeling? And he said, excited. excited, and I was like fucking punching the air, like, yes.
That's cool.
And these are, as a coach, like that to me is the, talk about ideal. Ooh, I've got my ideal client, because like they're so, like when somebody's in that space where they are so open to what's possible, despite a great degree of uncertainty and potential fear, like that is where all the magic happens. So this is why we wanted to dedicate 2 episodes to intention, because it has the capacity to change everything. It's intensely powerful. Yeah. And if you've never practiced with intentions before, then this episode today is going to help you to, wherever you're at, whether intention is something you work with or not, we can help you determine what's what sort of things you can consider to implement in your life now.
I don't know why this occurred to me when you were chatting, mate, but something that's just come to me is something I'd like to offer to anyone, because we can come up with a few little practices or ideas that people could use. But one of them is for anyone who has a holiday in the diary. I invite anyone who's in that position to get curious about what expectations they've got of that holiday. You don't have to do anything. Just notice that they're there. Do you expect it to be a certain way? Go a certain way? All those things, right? And just notice, and just put those to the side and set an intention for what you'd like to come from the holiday. An intention that even if things changed in and around what was going on, an intention of like what you want to get from it. And because then you're not setting in stone things that have to happen. You're not trying to control the future in order to get an outcome. You're setting your intention ahead of time. And what you may find is, COVID was such an example of this. How many people's expectations got shattered, and how many of us suffered because of those things, and some horrific things happened. I'm not saying it was like all based on that, but to take an example like holidays and things like that, it's the difference between being able to quickly realign ourselves with something that wasn't as we thought it was going to be, and then let go and enjoy that thing more, perhaps even than the first thing was going to be.
Yeah, it's a great example, because when have we ever had anything like that, or will have anything like that again?
Well, who knows?
And some people, and I would count myself in that bracket, really flourished during the pandemic, because like I didn't have any expectations at all, and it would have been really easy to have built a bunch, because we was, in inverted commas, supposed to be homeschooling and all, like, my intention was purely around being present for all of it with the kids.
Yeah.
And I look back on those days, and you get the pictures come up as memories and stuff. And as you said, like, not taken away from all of the tragedy and the horrific things that happened, but in my own little microcosm, it was a really enriching experience. And it wouldn't have been if I had a bunch of expectations, and it wouldn't have been if I was still drinking. One
thing that's really powerful to reflect on, I think, at the macro level about what happened over all the COVID stuff, is that I think it's had a really profound impact on society as a whole, because a lot of the things that we believed were solid, like things that that are made of thought at a societal level, a lot of the expectations we had of things that were always going to be permanent, they crumbled, they disappeared. Yeah. And so at a very deep subconscious level, people have gone, oh, it's all fucking made up. Yeah. It's all made up.
Exactly.
And it just changed so quickly. And look, I know that a lot of things have come back in and things, but I think at a really deep level, a lot of people went, huh, how wild is this experience? I've never been through something like this before. Something so that just changed everything so quickly. Anyway, a really interesting side point there. But so yeah, if you've got a holiday coming up or anything where you've built a big expectation around it. So here's another example for me. New Year's Eve are always often such a massive disappointment to me, because I had an expectation that it was going to be the best night of the year. And then it often wasn't, because you've built it up. So it's funny how these things work.
And that point that you make about, certainly and I can't, there's some quote that's related to this, or some finding from a study. It's about like our ability as human beings to adapt, like the level of longevity, lifespan, I think is linked to our ability to adapt to our circumstances and what have you. So this whole thing, I love your task of, you know, noticing what expectations might be there and then setting an intention, because having taken that flexibility into something like a holiday is going to give you the opportunity to experience it in a really, really different way. And that's going to have a profound effect on your being, which then means that you will want to take it forward and do it again. And this is the whole thing here is with intention, we're focusing on like how we want to feel, as opposed to arbitrary, what did you call them before? It's like immovable outcomes. It's like night and day. It's totally different.
And one of the reasons for that is that feelings come from thought. And so, and it may come from subconscious, like not necessarily just thinking, but it comes from this power of thought that we have running through us in every moment. So the moment you connect with an intention, you'll start to fucking feel it. You'll start to reverberate with that. You'll realize that you've got what you're looking for. And then you can build from a different place. You can stand somewhere else. It's not, I'll be happy when thinking anymore. It's, I am happy and I'm going to build from that place. And realizing that is it's a really different way to live life. And that's why I think, I mean, I haven't done this for a while, but there have been times in my life where I've set like an intention for every single day. And I know that we definitely got clear about, you know, intentions for this podcast. And although we've probably been a little bit lax compared to what some people might be in terms of like, you know, big, like, you know, we're going to get clear on our values. I mean, we know what they are because we talk to each other all the time. But the biggest thing that we've had is an intention to not hold back, to be willing to change and see things as we see things truthfully, say things as we see things on the day truthfully. And if it's different the next week, we're gonna go there. We're gonna say it looks different to us. And I think, you know, I think that's huge. Like base everything in love and wanting to just have a channel so that people can see the world differently. And those intentions, they say nothing of the what. They say nothing of like the action or what we're going to do or the topic we're going to have each week. And but they're strong. You know, they're a really powerful energy for something like this, and that can work for your day. It can work for a project. It can work for anything. You know, if we're going into anything in our lives and we haven't considered the intention, maybe it's just a huge thing that we can bring in that would start making a difference in our life. And interestingly, it will probably cast a massive highlight where we've got hidden expectations too.
Oh yeah. It's almost like there's two levels of operation. There's what you're describing feels like this this macro, this like zoomed out version, and particularly in life where we move through transitions, to reassert or clarify what our intention is can be a really helpful practice, defining that connection with ourselves, reaffirming that, aligning with that. It's like that compass that I was describing earlier. And then there's, to me, like this micro level where it comes down to, it might be a daily thing, it might be with a specific practice, like you mentioned, the sweat lodge, the ice bath, the yoga class. Intention setting's often as part of physical yoga practice. It could be daily prayer. It could be within, in fact, we could talk about the alcohol journey, like setting intention as part of that.
It could be shared as well. It could be like a shared intention with our partner or whoever to, because the thing is, then it's not like a prescribed map. It's like the intention is for us to live here or from this place or whatever, you know, whatever it may be. And then you and your partner can then dance the dance in the way that you do and find your way to wherever it is you're going, rather than both expecting each other to behave in a certain way so that you can get to a certain outcome, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's kind of like a different energy. There's more flow to it, as it seems to me.
Yeah. It's more flow, more flexible, reciprocal.
More yoga.
Yeah.
It is a yoga, this. Like, so a yoga in the terms of like learning unity and flexibility and mobility and going with the flow. You know, many things in life are a yoga. Yoga is not necessarily just asana and physical movement. There's so many limbs to it. And this is kind of a yoga. Living from intention and noticing your expectation is something where, you know, you're going to, I would imagine until the day that we die, we're going to be uncovering expectations that we're innocently carrying that we don't know that we've got. You know, and at the same time, we're going to be getting deeper and deeper and deeper into the truth of that. We operate from different places at the same time. We're entirely human, and forgiving ourselves for our humanness is beautiful and it's important. We're also deeply spiritual. We're much, much bigger than just the human part of ourselves. And, you know, if you're not someone that necessarily vibes with that language, you know, we can talk about, we're not just intellect, we're consciousness. We're much, much deeper than just personality and intellect and ego. You know, throw out the words that don't work and pick the ones that work for you. But knowing that those two levels and being on that yoga, being on that journey is wonderful. It's really, I think it's a route. It's a much quicker route to forgiveness for ourselves and others. And that's the other massive impact that this has, is that it will allow us to forgive and allow us to drop weight that we have been carrying for a long time. And I know I was talking to someone in one of the programs that we do for This Naked Mind the other day, Ellie, who effectively said to me, "No, I've sort of, everything's melted. I had all these ideas about the world and my partner, and it's all gone, and it's happened for them as well. And it truly feels like we've given each other a fresh start. It's kind of odd that we feel like we've met each other again, even though we've been married for however long. And who knows what will happen. In any of these things, it's not about that, but the intention is to truly listen to each other, to truly reconnect with each other, to truly, and how we'll figure it out. You know, how we do that will figure itself out, because the intention is the guiding light, like it is for this podcast, right? It's kind of like the thing that's out there in front of you. That's all you need to see. That's the flashlight in the fog.
Yeah, it has such power that it can cut through any illusion for how we're living, what's at play. This is a big deal. Do we want to talk a little bit, do we want to give a couple of like really clear examples of intention setting?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it could be as simple, because the thing is, it's often like, well, how on earth do I do it then? Well, like something as simple as setting an intention for the day in the morning could be huge for people. Or if you're going
have you ever done that?
Yes, I have. It's not something that I've done recently, but I have done that in the past. And it's, you know, in fact, I've quite often set intentions for meetings and things like that, you know, or coaching sessions as well. So, for example, my intention might be to become a better listener, or to, you know, to do things like that. And it doesn't require any more than that. I don't think we don't have to like get really hardcore with ourselves and like remind ourselves all the time. It's just saying the words, you know, I'm going to go to this social meeting, and I intend to let go of the parts of me that aren't serving me, and just be as present with the people that I love as I can. That's it. You know, and then go to that thing and see what happens. Or maybe it's waking up in the morning and saying, okay, today is my day off. And I know that I often don't actually allow myself a day off. And so I'm going to have an intention to give myself, I intend to give myself the permission to just be today, to actually rest, to truly rest. You know, it's infinite, the things that could come out, but keep it really, really simple, I think. So either daily or for big events, but maybe that business meeting that's coming up, you know, I intend to Yeah, often. And so if you're going into something troubling as well, I think it can be really, really powerful. Like if you're going to go into a mediation with someone and you know that I intend to listen from the heart and remember that this person is a human just like me and they see the world differently to I do. Something like that could have a huge difference.
Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking about when I embarked on going alcohol free, and my intention then was, oh, not now, Noe. Can you go and see your daddy? Might have to press.
We've got a visitor.
And just press pause for a second.
I will do.
And remind me where I was at.
Okay, we've got an Ellie Crow back. She's been on ice cream duty. Ice cream. Don't say. Well. Let's see. We've got to try. 10 minutes. We can do this.
Yeah, we can do
Go
this.
on.
So I was talking about setting an intention for our alcohol-free journey and what I did, and this wasn't like that I had this it wasn't like some kind of well thought out process necessarily. It was just what seemed, and this is why intentions are great, because they're not coming from here. I'm pointing to my head. They're coming from the heart. They're coming from that wisdom, that feeling. And what I was being led by, and the intention that I set was, and this is so that for those that don't know, I came across This Naked Mind in the December 2019, discovered the science about alcohol, desired to drink, immediately went, and I was kind of caught in this weird liminal space of, I don't want to drink, but how do you not drink when that's all you've done for your adult life? And a week or so later joined the alcohol experiment that was starting on the 1st of January. So what happened within that liminal space, as I then went into the pre-work and then the alcohol experiment, was I adopted this intention of, or discovered this intention within of, I'm just willing to be wrong. I'm willing to be wrong about everything that I know, because that opening had been so powerful for me. So my intention wasn't, I'm not going to drink for 30 days or whatever. It wasn't about the behavioral outcome. It was about how I was going to be, how I was going to engage with life. And that was, and funnily enough, free of expectation, right? I'm willing to be wrong. I'm completely open.
Yeah, I love it. And I think it's important to note that it doesn't have to you don't have to say my intention is. So for example, before I go into any kind of ceremony or the sweat lodge at the weekend, I basically, so I always I direct the question to what makes sense to me. So I direct the question to the universe or to Mother Earth or whatever, right? I'm very, to that force behind evolution, to the thing that's guiding everything, moving through everything. That's where I ask. I'm not asking my intellect. I'm asking of that energy to either make something clearer or to help me release some unconscious fear, or to give me a deeper knowing of something that I already know to be true, or a reminder. Or sometimes it might just be to care for me, to like keep me safe, or to look after me. And so I'll go, and that's amazing. And sometimes an intention can just be to see whatever I'm supposed to see. So it doesn't have to be crystal clear. It doesn't, it's just, there's something about the energy of hang on, how to language this. It's about going into something with intention. It's not even necessarily like a vocalized intention. It's about knowing that you're going in and not just going in on autopilot. So if you walk into an ice bath, you're going to get a shock. If you go into any of these things, they're all metaphorical, like whatever we're talking about. If you go on the alcohol-free journey without any kind of intention of who you want to be, what you want to see, what you want to learn, then you don't have that anchor, you don't have that compass, and I think that's it. So it can just be taking a minute just for example, before you go into that alcohol-free socializing setting, I often talk to people about, before you open the door and walk in, stop just for 1 minute, look at the sky, look at whatever's near you, breathe, and just say, okay, here I am in this moment, going to go in here and I'm going to learn something. And then you open the door. Because what a lot of us do is we get out the taxi or the car or whatever, we're in a flurry, we're a bit anxious about it, and without even, we just walk straight into that thing, and before we know it, we're talking to Uncle Dave and whatever's happening, right? So just, it can be just slowing down for a minute, taking a breath. That can be an intention. So it's about, yeah, I don't know if that made any sense. I'm trying to language something that it feels a little bit hard to clothe in language.
It made a whole heap of sense, and it just brought to mind how empowering it is, and how much, like in that kind of an example that you've just given, the swell of confidence that can come with that versus the level of anxiety that can be present when we go in blind, when we go in where we haven't prepared in the same way. It's a really powerful tool used in the right way. It has the propensity to define your experience in a really, really different way.
Quite literally. I mean, like, so if you, for example, you know, when Scott was here, we were talking about the reticular activating system and the filters that we have in our mind. If you intend to walk into somewhere and notice all the negative shit, that's what you'll see. If you have an intention to walk in and see the love, that's what you'll see. Like, there's literally something that it's called the shape of your listening. This is really interesting, just as a final thing to finish on. If the shape of your listening is to go into a relationship that you've had with someone, and you've got some kind of subconscious layers where you're expecting to pick up on conflict or expecting to see the ways that you're being judged, that's what you'll see. The shape of your listening will follow that. If you decide, or if you have an intention that you're going to go and meet someone anew, someone that you've known for a very, very long time, but you're going to change the shape of your listening, and you're going to be there with them for the first time, and you're going to notice all of the ways that they do something different or whatever, then you will have a different experience. You quite literally see through the filter, the goggles that you're wearing that day. And that's why sometimes you meet someone, they're just okay, they're just fine, you know, and then you see them another time, they annoy the buggery out of you. You're like, what the, you know, it's like, that's what's going on. It's not them that's changing, it's us. So you're literally, this is like it's like a deep spiritual truth, as well as being like a neurological, biological hack that's going to allow you to do certain things in your life and see certain things in a certain way. And do you want to live through life with more positivity, seeing more joy and love, and having less conflict? This is a wonderful way of bringing that in.
Yeah. Without going off on another tangent, what it made me think about was the other podcast episode that we talked about, recording around victim mode.
Yeah.
So it's a tactic that guards against being a victim. And we've all experienced a level of that, you know, victim mentality in our lives, I'm sure. And it doesn't feel great. Sometimes we can get so stuck in it and we don't know how to get out of it. But it's through empowerment. That's what I'm saying, like this. But by setting intention, you're empowering yourself. You're giving yourself this level of confidence. And I think the way that I expressed it earlier was, it's like you are in your full expression, or you have the potential to be in your full expression. And that's really, really different from being closed down and in the feeling of the world is happening to me, and just kind of like bobbing about in all of it.
Yeah. Rather than for me, by me, and through me. Exactly. And so, hey, just to tie a really lovely, neat little bow on this, I'd love to put the invitation out there to anyone who's tuned in and has been touched by something in this or whatever, or whatever it might be. Come get in the Facebook group. Come and let us know your intentions for the next year, for your alcohol-free journey, for the day, for whatever it may be. Like, we'd love to see that. And just to say, like, this morning, we got an email from someone this, like, and we get emails all the time, but we got one this morning. It just happens to be the most recent. That was just lovely. It's just so nice to wake up and read something like that. Someone basically pouring their heart out and saying, thank you so much for doing this. Like, it's making such a difference in my life. And so, yeah, you know, thank you to anyone who is tuning in. And we truly, dearly love to see when people have picked things up at whatever level or whatever depth they've seen something, and especially if it's made a difference in your life, to let us know about it. It's always a nice thing to hear about.
Yeah, and a wonderful thing to do, like, that costs nothing but a bit of time, that can have a huge impact, is either writing a review, sharing the podcast, or both.
Yeah,
because you just never know who it's going to touch, in what kind of a way, and then the ripple effect from there on in. And all of us that are in this community together, we all have that same pull in some way, that we want to pay this forward, or we want to pay it back to others. So sharing, please do share the podcast. Please do go and write us a review if you haven't already. And thank you, everyone, for just being you and listening.
Yeah. I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to say that that was easily one of my most, of the podcasts that we've recorded together, that was a really, really nice one. I feel like I've learned a lot from that. I really enjoyed that conversation. It was really cool, and we didn't know where it was going to go. And yeah, I feel really grateful to have had that chat.
We did have an intention, though, and I think we also met the intention.
You know it.
With the output.
Yeah. Yeah. Right, team. So much love your way. Ellie's going to go to the Caribbean now, and I'm going to crack on with some shit that I haven't done, because I've been putting my brain back in my in my head after a very special weekend. But it took a little while going to take me a while to integrate. But thanks for being here and listening, team. Love you all.
Love you all.